It has emerged that Anthony Fauci has presided over animal experimentation for a number of years. Is this morally wrong? Does it change your impression of Anthony Fauci? Or should we just accept that this is part and parcel of the modern scientific world? Now, I suppose Anthony Fauci is an interesting figure because on one half, roughly, of the political divide, he's adored and feted and people have t-shirts with his face on them. And on the other half, he's loathed and despised. As you know, me politically, I am transcendent of these boundaries, not because I'm some ethereal magical man, but because I think that centralised politics is so dominated by financial corruption and systemic entropy that there's no real point in critiquing it or standing up for it. You have to get beyond it. You have to replace it. That said, let's have a look at what Anthony Fauci is alleged to have done. Writing in Substack, Leighton Woodhouse goes, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the division of National Institutes of Health run by Anthony Fauci, so that's definitely true, he definitely does run that, funded a recent experiment in Tunisia, okay, it's in Tunisia, why there, in which lab technicians placed sedated beagles' heads in mesh cages and allowed starved sandflies to feast on them alive. Sometimes you hear an experiment, you think, what's the upside of that then? Right, I've got to know. What will a famished sandfly do if given access to a sedated beagle's head? Otherwise, how the hell are we going to get men on the moon? Look, something as serious as this, you can only joke about it and also perhaps acknowledge that this is something that happens all the time throughout industries that are dependent upon, for example, meat, or the pharmacological industry in general is dependent upon animal experimentation. I'm sure it'll be framed as, I'm looking forward to the statement, aren't you already? What statement do they issue? Yeah, we were doing that, but we got to, because, sandflies and that. Let's see. The experiment was just one of countless tests done on animals with the funding of NIH and NIAID. God, even as an acronym, that's hard. Do they call it NIAID? Listen, I've been working at NIAID for years now, in particular over the course of decades. Estimates of the number of animals experimented on each year in the US range from the tens of millions to over 100 million, most of them paid for with taxpayer money. Again, the lack of transparency. Some people will be totally cool with that. It'll be like, listen, I want drugs available to treat X, Y, Z. We've got a history of this in our family. The fact that we're so dislocated from these kind of pieces of information, that it all happens in a clandestine way. Why? Because many of us will go, I don't want that. I don't want that happening. That's why most information is controlled, because if you knew about the information, it would change the way you feel, it would change the way you behave, it would change you. So the information is controlled. The amount of information is, oh God, we can't have people knowing that. Our enemies would use that against us. You're our enemies. For the amount of money and the amount of suffering entailed, little is produced. Much of it is pointless to begin with. Can I just ask, what is the point of putting these sandflies on these sedated beagles' head? God, I've never really thought about it, really. Well, I suppose the answer is there is no point. But that is art, then. It's like, behold! Dun, dun, dun. Whoop, whoop. See, it's a very evocative piece. But even the experiments that purport to measure the safety and efficacy of drugs are all but useless. Was there a point to doing that to those dogs? No. Was it of any use? No. Carry on. In NIH's own words, approximately 30% of promising medications have failed in human clinical trials because they are found to be toxic despite promising preclinical studies in animal models. About 60% of candidate drugs fail due to the lack of efficacy. Now, what we'll see now will be a bunch of people saying this is just part and parcel of science, it's necessary, don't be squeamish about it. The reason they keep this argument out of the public eye is it ain't an easy one to win, because most people haven't natural, spiritual, emotional, humane, personal connection to animals. So if you go, no, I know it looks bad putting the sandflies on that beagle's head, but when you look at it this way, it's really hard to win that argument. You just have to take it off the table altogether. That's what censorship does. That's what control does. Anything that's censored, in my humble opinion, means that they're not confident that they'd win the argument if you had access to all of the information, so best to control the information. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, it turns out that by the NIH's own words, there's a 90% failure rate. Most of the failure is due to fundamental differences between human physiology and the physiologies of mice, rabbits, or dogs. Right, so we've got to just test this on these rabbit paws and these rabbit ears. Now, let's do it to the human's paws and ears. They don't have paws, sir. Shit. Another rabbit completely wasted. Even between animals with much closer physiologies, the predictive power of animal tests is unimpressive. And yet, the tests continue unabated for three reasons. 1. Institutional inertia. That just means things tend to go the way they've always gone because of a kind of energy. Inertia, like a train continuing to move long after you've asked it to stop. I think that's how trains work. NIH Director Francis Collins and Anthony Fauci. Those are the three reasons. The two of the reasons are Francis Collins and Fauci. The Tunisia experiment at least had some practical scientific value. Around 500,000 people a year get ZVL, many of them children, and they generally get it from dogs. The experiment showed that dogs that are infected by the parasite are more attractive to the sandflies who carry the virus than uninfected dogs. The same can't be said for other experiments paid for by Fauci's NIAID. Last year, the Institute paid the University of Georgia $424,455 to infect beagles with the parasite before killing them. The purpose of the experiment was to test a drug that, by the investigators' own admission, had already been extensively tested and confirmed in numerous other animal species. Okay, so we gotta test this on these beagles. Oh, did we experiment in because, we need to confirm whether or not it's effective? No, we've already confirmed that it is effective. So why are we doing it? I was bitten by a beagle as a boy. The NIH spends more than $40 billion a year on medical experiments. Oh, they are the principal source of funding for basic scientific research in America. The institutes estimate that 47% of their grants involve animal testing. Obviously, a better approach to animal testing would be, is this effective? Is it necessary? Is the endpoint an effective solution to medical problems experienced by human beings, not to make a bunch of money for a bunch of already rich institutions and corporations? Those little principles there would obviously significantly reduce the amount of animal experimentation that's happening, and most of us, I imagine, would be down with that. And even me, proper vegan dude, I'm like, okay, I don't want to have the argument about whether or not there's experimentation around like advanced cancers and heart disease, because who am I if someone I love, my mum's had cancer 8 times, for God's sake, it's literally, so all right, fair enough. I don't know. Maybe, I've not spent enough time. But where we can spend time is like, don't do it when you've already confirmed it, when it's inconclusive anyway. That we can just take that off the table. Don't keep it because it will affect your funding. It's likely that the percentage is much higher for NIAID alone. NIAID commands a budget of $6 billion. There's an unwritten rule that in order to win an NIAID grant, you have to test on animals. We're not going to write this rule because it makes us look like bastards who like testing animals just for amusement. But believe me, it is a rule. Almost all investigators are trained using animal research, said Jim Keane, a former USDA veterinarian and infectious disease specialist. If you don't use that model, you don't get funding. It's just institutional. There's no point doing it. I know, remember, don't be reductive. When you go in the comments down below, people will go, oh, what do you want then? People want to come up with cures for cancer. I bet one person at least still falls into it. I bet one does. But I'm saying this for clarity. Listen, if this is a serious disease, stuff that affects kids negatively or people that we love, okay. But shouldn't it be approached not from a financial perspective, but from a moral perspective? Shouldn't morality be at the heart of our systems rather than economics? I suppose it's because of the complexity of morality that some people see things this way, some people see it this way. That economics, because it's somewhat verifiable, ends up being the beating heart of most systems, whether they are left-wing or right-wing, Marxist or fascist. Finances ends up being at the core of them. What I would say is you cannot centralize power in this kind of way because of the differences of morality, but morality absolutely must be at the core of our systems. Otherwise, you end up with filthy, disgusting anomalies like this. When a researcher submits an application for NIH funding, their proposal is reviewed in the first round by their peers, almost all of whom are animal testers. Okay, let's see. So when are you going to be testing on animals? Well, we didn't need to because it's already been confirmed. I don't like that. Something about that I don't like. Why are you chewing on that beagle's ear? I don't know, just testing it. What for? Whether it'll be better than bubblegum? Well, I don't think it would. Don't know yet. It's not finished testing. Can't blow these damn bubbles. Sir, please. I'm trying to submit a grant. Shut up. I'm a scientist. It's sort of incestuous, Keith said. That's another problem. According to Garrett Larvis, former neuroscientist who used to experiment on mice and who has reviewed NIH grant applications, the professional insularity creates a culture of groupthink. Of course, that's what institutions do. You have institutional inertia because of all these animal experimenters. He told me it's simply taken for granted that a good research design entails animal experimentation, since everyone judging it has been trained that way. They're like a bunch of old codgers, didn't they, down a club? What do you mean you didn't test it on no beagles? We didn't need to. We was able to test it on this piece of organic material. In my day, we tested it on beagles. We ain't giving you penny one, son. I'll give you a penny, but you better put it straight in the beagle's eye. Promise me that. Promise me that. Keane was the whistleblower in a major New York Times expose of animal abuse at the US Animal Research Center in Nebraska. Believes another reason for the animal-centric culture, and it's not that animal-centric, they treat animals like shit, is its leadership, namely Fauci and Collins. People like Fauci and Collins really believe in that animal model, he said. It's a huge impact having those two at the helm. The two directors' unquestioning commitment to animal testing sets the tone for science as a whole. Unquestionable is the wrong approach to any scientific endeavour. Hey, excuse me, I've got a question. Shut up! I don't do questions! Careers are based on it, said Keane. Certainly Fauci's career is based on it. Fauci's been testing on animals for 4 decades. He can't get enough. And failing to produce results for just as long. Finally, one of these experiments has got to go right one of these days. Just another decade, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a perfectly good lipstick. The Fauci of the 80s at least had the excuse. Animal models may have been disastrous in terms of their predictive powers for humans, but it was arguably the best option scientists had at the time. In 2021, that ain't even remotely true. Knowledge in the life sciences doubles every 7 years, says Dr. Thomas Hartung, a toxicologist who directs Johns Hopkins University Centre for Alternatives to Animal Testing. We have about 1,000 times more knowledge now than we had at the time we designed animal testing. Yeah, but have you tested that answer on a beagle? Well, how would we do that? You'd stick the papers in the beagle's eyes, good and true. Well, I don't think that they should be doing unnecessary animal tests, Fauci or anybody else. But that's just what I think. What do you think about it? Tell me down below what you reckon. But please make sure you incorporate all of my points and everything that I said already in the video. If you like this video, have a look at this little cheek pot. And if you want to meditate now, have a glance at this. And if you want to sign up to my mailing list and receive information direct from me, particularly my 12 methods for changing your consciousness and life, sign up to the mailing list here, just one click away. Stay free.